Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet SkyFF, the world where everything revolves around £50,000. My name's Serge, and today I have two people who have come to me for advice on how they're going to win it because they need all the help they can get. How are we doing, James?
Yeah, listen, it's been about, I think, 14, 15 months since we had Dan Cox on. It's about time we got another pro on this podcast, I think. My name's James. And today we've got a guest with us. We thought it'd be a good timing because there's not too much happening in terms of transfers and whatnots at the moment. Delighted to be welcomed today by Luke Williams at FF Scout _ Luke, who's part of the Fantasy Football Scout Sky podcast with FF Scout. Joe, how are you, Luke?
Yeah, not too bad. Pretty tired. On night shift last night. Just got up a crack of dawn for my daughter's birthday, but we'll soldier on. We'll get it done.
Happy birthday to the little one. 8, I understand.
That's right. Yeah. Don't know where the time's gone.
I thought you might have had a late night, Luke, because a little birdie told me that you didn't captain Bruno Fernandes, so you might have been drowning your sorrows. Is that true? What the little birdie told me?
No, that's not true. That's not true. Yeah, Captain Bruno. I'm not mad.
It's me. I thought you'd had a dip in rank, Luke, because I saw you was about 50th. Where are you now?
Yeah, so that actually happened last week. So I was 47th last week, and then basically I didn't captain Salah. So it was a horrific week. Like the template did so well. I had no Martinez, no Dallas who scored. I captained Cancelo on the Saturday, who got 0 points, obviously didn't play. And then I actually went differential on the Sunday when everyone else went Salah, went with Maddison, who I think he got an assist, didn't he? So that caused me to slip 50 places. But this week, just had Bruno Fernandes captain. So even despite having that, I actually dropped again, I think, a few places, because obviously a few people have got Rashford and the like. So yeah, not a good week. You should have had me on last week when I was flying. Yeah.
That's why I invited you on, because I thought you had a chance of winning this.
Yeah, no, not anymore. Sorry.
So where are you now, Luke?
I think I haven't actually checked my rank this morning. I think it's about 98 or something like that. So dropped about 50 places, just off of the back of that one. Yeah, big hitter not captaining one of those safe options, which is always the fear, isn't it? The moment you move away from the likes of Salah, De Bruyne, and Bruno, it carries that fear with it. And it's been working for me, to be fair, because go back about 5-6 weeks, I was sort of in the top 1K, and I've caught up around, look at the mini leagues and stuff, but I caught up around 200 points on a lot of really good players and was flying, just being aggressive, a little bit different, which I think you have to do really to make big headway. But then that's where I think I'm lacking somewhat, because then I go for glory, and I'm in 47th, and I went for Maddison captain over Salah. I know it's easy to say now in hindsight it's the wrong move. I genuinely thought like he had a chance of being the highest scorer in that game, like that game day, I should say. It felt like it would be a basketball match like most people. And obviously Salah had blanked for like 6-7 weeks straight. But that's the thing. You just, to sort of consolidate, I probably should have gone Salah. And yeah, it is what it is.
Hindsight though, isn't it? Because it can go both ways. Like, as you said, you captained Cancelo against West Brom. So, I captained Diaz in the West Brom and the game at the Sheffield United game at the weekend, and you captained Cancelo in both. So if you actually put the two together, you're 5 points up on me.
Right, yeah, exactly. And I watched your pod last week where you were saying, that flip-flops either way. You were saying exactly that. And I think you were a little bit down because you were saying that you were in the running for sort of potentially winning it, and then you thought like you couldn't. And I've just had that weight now, and it does, it flip-flops. And obviously that is part of the skill of Sky, isn't it? It's getting the captains right. We all know if you get those captains right, you've won half the battle, I think. And obviously in a week where you get 0 for Cancelo and then sort of 5 points for Maddison when everyone else has got 20 for Diaz, and what did Salah end on? About 35, something like that. I don't know what it was in the end, but
36 with the captaincy, I think.
There you go. So straight away, that's like 50, 60 points down the drain, which you can still make it up. We're only halfway, but it's an uphill battle now, I think.
How many transfers left?
Yeah, the truth is,
yeah, transfers is it's around 15, which is a lot less than what I want.
What does around mean?
I don't want to say because there's too many sharks in my WhatsApp groups that are tracking it non-stop. So it's around 15, and it's probably too few, but there's a long way to go. I suppose nailing the overhaul is going to be the key. And obviously, if there's not many injuries to the big names, you've got a chance to survive. But realistically, trying to knock out. It's not just the sort of 100 people above me. There's obviously, 200-300 people below me, or even more possibly, that could overtake you. So you've got to do better than all those guys, and potentially, a lot of those guys are. It's not like FPL where you look at the top 10K like now, midway through the season, you could probably say maybe 8,000 of them have never been in that region before. You look at Sky and the top 100 leaderboard, and there's about 60 names I recognise. So you've got to beat really good managers on potentially less swaps. So yeah, there's still a chance, but realistically, we're going to have to get very lucky.
So you had a question for Luke, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, between now and the end of the season, there's still probably in the region of about 50 match days, so 50 captaincies still to pick. So even if you get 2 or 3 out of 50 correct over anybody else, and then go with the majority on the rest, that's enough to close the gap. So where you guys are sitting there with double-digit ranks and mine's sitting at 2,000, I'm a little jealous. Although I did go from 2,800 to 2,000 in the last week. We're making progress, James, making progress.
I didn't anticipate we'd do this podcast and I'd be above Luke. I'm up to 73rd now. Luke, the shots can come for me because I ain't winning it, mate. I've got 15 left. I'm definitely done for the week now. Have you got any transfers planned left, Serge?
No, I've got enough coverage to keep me going. The move to Thiago Silva on the Sunday, it worked okay. The only thing was I then captained Thiago Silva over Mo Salah, so that didn't quite work out. I could have, if I hadn't bought Thiago Silva, I wouldn't have bothered, and I'd have kept the armband on Salah. So that's fine, but it gives me coverage for Thursday night with the Spurs game as well. So I'm not making any moves, and luckily I don't have any injuries or any flags or any concerns. And none of my players have managed to get themselves sent off either, James.
I laughed my tits off when Leno got sent off. Honestly, I thought it was brilliant. It was such a shocking handball. I've not seen one like that in a very, very long time. Well, I don't know what was going through his mind, but then I think that's a perfect case of don't bother. So Would I have massively expected him to keep a clean sheet at Villa anyway at the weekend? No. Would I have captained him? No. Is it worth making a transfer? I'd say possibly the only debate for making a transfer at this stage is if you're buying someone you're going to captain twice. Would that be fair, Luke?
Yeah, I wouldn't touch it now. Goalkeepers are, if you actually look at the highest scorers in the game, there's a lot of goalkeepers up there and the value. So they can get massive returns, as likes of Martinez and Pope show us. But no, not for 2 weeks. I mean, even if they get a 13-point haul twice and get 26 points, so you're not going to captain that. 26 points at the very top end for one transfer, I still wouldn't make that move, I don't think. So, no, I would just leave that now.
Are you done on transfers yourself, do you think?
Well, I say that every week and then something happens, doesn't it? But
I'm definitely done. I don't care. I'm done now.
Yeah, I think I'm at that stage now where if something does happen, I'm not going to touch it now. I've got too few. But even if I didn't, even if I was sat with 25, I don't think I'd make it for 2 games now. I would leave it.
And there's quite a bit of FA Cup, obviously, in the middle of next week as well. And you never know what happens with injuries and stuff. So you want to kind of save any transfers you can back. You know what you need to do, James? Just delete the app from your phone and then just reinstall it in about a week's time. So literally go and press the X, get rid of it.
No, Serge, because we need to set those captains, right?
I've set mine. I'm done. I've set mine.
You've been what? Listen, go back and check again on Friday, mate. What's your historical like, Luke? How long have you played the game for on that?
Oh, God. Well, I think I've played it ever since it first launched, but I can't be sure because obviously at the time when I first started playing, I didn't check to see whether it was Sky's first season, but if it wasn't the first, it would have been the second, and it was certainly around that era.
I have no clue when that was.
No, neither do I. And this is the problem with not having a leaderboard, right, with Sky. You can't tell these things very easily. So yeah, I'm not 100% sure. I actually did have a record on my old computer of every finish I ever had, and it was in a spreadsheet. But then my hard drive blew up, and I lost everything. So to be honest, I could tell you I finished second 8 times, and you wouldn't know any different, right? So there we go.
Well, I haven't got your hard drive, mate. So you can say whatever you like.
Exactly. That's what I mean. No, I've done all right.
Maybe we'd have to judge from your bank balance and see if you've been picking up 10, 15 grand every season if you finish second 8 years in a row.
No, definitely not. No. I finished 4th one season. That was the Yaya Toure Ramsey season, which is nice. Easily my best one. I finished 23rd once, and I finished, I think, 43rd as well. Quite a few top hundreds overall, but the last 2 or 3 years have been around sort of the top 1,000, maybe the last 2 years, I think. So I just stopped track ever since I lost my spreadsheet, and it wasn't where I wanted it to be. I've stopped tracking it, but be nice if they brought that in actually, and maybe they could do it retrospectively and sort of if you through the same account. I don't understand. There's a possibility that they could actually look at that, but I don't know. Either way, at the end of the day, I always want to win Sky. It's all about getting the money. It's great for content and put it in your bio and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's all about trying to go for the prize, and especially with no leaderboard, like I say, it just doesn't really matter. Then you just go again for the next season, right? So in terms of money, done not too bad on some of the mini leagues, but these days it's a lot harder. There's too many good players.
Is the target still first?
Target's always first, but realistically, I take the top 100 and try and make a little bit of money. The problem is these days, the money's a lot harder to make because in the past, everyone used to advertise their leagues on Facebook, on the official Facebook and Twitter. And the game was a lot harder back in the day as well, because I don't know how long you guys have played, but there was actually a system in place where you only had one captain swap per week, and you could use it at any point during the week. So what you would have to do, and this would have been perfect for someone like you, James, with fixtures, is you could use it midweek or at the start or at the end, but you could only use it that once. So you would have a captain, say Salah on the Saturday, and I would move it to Kevin De Bruyne on the Sunday. But I would only do that if then Kevin De Bruyne played on the Saturday the next week, because then I could use my swap.
Flip it back again. I get it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you had to be very, very sort of savvy to that system. And then also, if you used a transfer, you could transfer out your captain, and the person coming in would take that armband. So you could actually make yourself have 3 or 4 captains in a weekend if there was 3 or 4 match days. And it was nothing like it was now. So obviously that threw the casuals even further out. You know what I mean? It was so much easier to get in the top.
Complicated.
Exactly, very complicated. But it was fun for the people. And that's why I like Sky at the end of the day. The more effort you put into this, generally you can see those rewards. It's not always that way with FPL, I think.
Agreed.
So that's why I prefer Sky, really. It rewards that hard work. So there we go.
Okay. Should we do captains, Suj?
Yes, let's have a look.
Tonight's awkward, isn't it? A little bit.
Yeah,
I know what I'm doing, and I think Luke's doing the same.
I think if you think about logically, we've been looking and talking FPL as well in the other pods and stuff. Salah's pretty much a no-brainer in FPL. It makes me think when I look at it, I could go with a Robertson or a Diaz because of the security of just, even if a 10-pointer from them feels more comfortable than maybe going for broke with Salah. But I think I'm going to leave the armband on Salah for today.
Luke?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure mine will be Cancelo.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been all in on him, to be fair. I just think the fact that we get to see the lineups obviously helps add that confidence. And then Man City are going to concede at some point, and it could be this game week. It could end up with 2 points. But for me, I think the minimum he's probably getting is, assuming he gets 90 minutes, which is also a valid concern, I think, he's going to get at least 4, right? Because he's probably going to get the passing bonus, possibly even tier 2. So that's 5. And yeah, at the end of the day, for Salah to match him, he's got to score like a brace, which he's more than capable of doing. But I feel like if you take that 10 points for Cancelo, add in maybe 1 assist, you're already laughing. We already know that this guy can do far more than that. So yeah, I'm tempted to do it, especially as all the masses will look at Salah because of what happened last week. They seem to forget the 6 weeks previous where he got 2 points every single time. So and Brighton are fairly solid. I don't doubt Salah will do well and bite me. But if you own him, I don't think he can hurt you that much. At the end of the day, I was complaining a minute ago that I've dropped 50 places. But if you were at 3K and you dropped 50 places, you wouldn't bat an eyelid, would you? It's just it's more noticeable when you're in the top 100. So yeah, it's Cancelo for me. That was a long-winded answer, but I feel like his ceiling is even higher than Salah. Salah's got to hit a hat trick basically to match potentially what Cancelo could do. He's just got so many avenues.
There's 2 sides to this. So I mean, I bought Thiago Silva myself on Sunday for best and worst signing of the season, Joel Matip, and I'm sitting there and I captained Thiago on Sunday as well, and I'm sitting there with half hour to go at a Liverpool game thinking, oh, this is amazing. But then obviously he's gone and done what he's capable of, Salah. But I think like you, Luke, with the team tonight as well, I'll be Cancelo as well, unless something in that Man City team spooks me, where I'm quite concerned about something. And it might be that they've rested a few attacking players, for example. But if the team's similar to what I'm sort of expecting, i.e. those rested at the weekend come back in, including Cancelo, and I think the fact we see the team, I want to go for that. You mentioned Cancelo coming off early. If Liverpool are 3-0 up, it might well be that Salah's already done the damage. But with City on Sunday, they might take him off early as well, right? So
Agreed.
I'm going to go Cancelo. I think the upside tonight of seeing the team, I didn't have the guts to go for it on Saturday. I went with Diaz. And the previous week, I was spooked by Kyle Walker being back in training was enough to put me off Cancelo without seeing the team. And so I went for Diaz with that one as well. But I think tonight with the team, well, I mentioned you on the pod last week, Luke, exactly what you're saying is if you know that the guys at the back, if that's who you want to back, are going to get the passing tiers, and we assume against Burnley they do, you'd go with the attacking guy, defensive, who's got the biggest upside. So, yeah, I'll be with you on Cancelo as long as I like the City team tonight.
Yeah, what if he's at left back? Will that change your opinion?
No, because I almost think I would, because they're playing Burnley, I guess there's a fair chance they pick their biggest guys aerially. So I expect him to play left back and Kyle Walker to play right back. And I don't think that affects him because Kyle Walker can neither play the kind of raiding fullback, but he tends to drop more into similar positions to what Zinchenko does now. So I don't think that impacts Cancelo too much at all. And actually coming off the left, he's better for him if he wants to shoot. Actually, I know he scored with his left peg at West Brom, but he's better with his right peg shooting, ironically. So that wouldn't put me off at all.
Yeah, no, I think I'm with you. At the end of the day, I don't think it can be argued that Salah is just the safest choice because he'll be the most captained amongst the most people. So, your rank's not going to change too much based off of a Salah captain, as my last week showed, which is what I should have done. But yeah, for me, when you have those opportunities, they run out quickly. I know we're only halfway through the season, but like you've just said there, if you continue to play all, Serge, what you said about all the safe captains and pick 2 or 3 throughout the whole season, I mean, that's only 2 or 3 times. So let's say those work and you get 30 points. That's only 90 points you're talking about there. The opportunities will start to run out and it will come down to who's got more transfers and stuff. So sometimes you kind of have to smell blood, I think. And at the moment, I mean, the last 8 weeks, Man City show this perfectly. The way that they were going on, the defenders, Stones coming into the team, stuff like that. People always worry about using transfers, but the timing of the transfer could be so important. And I think those last 8 weeks, anyone who went all in on City has absolutely made massive moves up the leaderboard. And will they be able to get the same value for their transfer later on in the season? I doubt it. I doubt you're going to make that amount of points off of them later on. You could do, but it's kind of smelling blood sometimes, I guess. And
did I say I was captaining Salah? I meant I was captaining Diaz. Just for all the listeners listening, yeah, I'm captaining Diaz now. I've changed my mind. I've gone in and I've already adjusted.
Can I just say,
you're a better manager than me at this game, Luke. It does make sense what you're saying, of course.
Luke, correct me if I'm wrong. The advice is captain Salah, but we're going Cancelo.
Yeah, always. I will always advise the sensible thing because I don't want anyone to suffer the same fate as me. Yeah. No.
Oh man. Well, who do you own for tomorrow, Luke? Who do you own out of the Chelsea and Spurs game?
Unfortunately, it's Son. And like you, I wish I'd have done Thiago Silva. I put a poll up on Twitter. I heavily thought that Thiago Silva was probably going to end up being the best option, but I think I let fear guide me. At the end of the day, we can't really judge it yet until the 3 games have been over. And obviously that West Brom game is quite important. And obviously the Spurs versus Chelsea game, I mean, that's going to be a really key one because Thiago Silva could come out of that with 20 points as captain. And obviously, therefore, it doesn't really matter what Son does against West Brom really to match him. So, yeah, I'll be on Son, unfortunately. And I'm sure James can talk us through his... Did you even do that, James? I don't know if you went Son or Son.
Yeah, I had to because I was out with Zuma. I couldn't get to Kane. So I bought Son against Liverpool. Then obviously Matip, the joke, got injured as well, which, to be honest, in an odd way, it's kind of worked out for me because if Matip hadn't got injured, I wouldn't have bought Thiago Silva. And then I'd be stuck in the same place. And if Thiago Silva, because I'm potentially going to captain him on Sunday as well, if it turns out to be 60 points from the 3 games, and I think there's a fair chance of that, then it's turned out to be well worth it. So ironically, this might be, the Joel Matip injury might have worked out for me. That signing obviously didn't work out because I could have just bought Thiago Silva when he played Wolves, and then it might have been 70 or 80 points rather than 60. For myself tomorrow, literally zeroed out. I've got Son as well. I'd definitely be going Thiago Silva.
That's what highlights. Sorry, Sergio. I was going to say that's what highlights the value of a transfer to me. Is like there you've done Joel Matip and he just gets injured and it's a 1 point, or you could have done a Thiago Silva or a Rob Holding. Is basically the poster boy for that over the last few weeks, and suddenly your transfer's worth 60 points. So it's all good holding these transfers, but sometimes, no matter how hard you try, that you will just waste them. Like not through your own fault. Some people could have gone Zaha recently because he got a great little run of 3 games, possible captain differentials, injured in the first game. What can you do? It's fantasy life, unfortunately.
Yeah, difficult. I'm the same as James tomorrow in that I own Son and Thiago, but it just makes sense to go with the safe option. We both predicted a 2-0 in that, so it would be stupid to not captain Thiago. Luke, what are you thinking for Saturday?
Oh God, I can't remember who's playing now. Let's bring up my team.
You've got Man United,
Honest,
Everton
I just did
potentially
the
as a
same.
consideration. West Ham against Fulham. Could Antonio be a shout if you own him?
You're looking at Villa v Arsenal, basically. Antonio at Fulham or Bruno.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to say that I'd go Antonio, but to be honest, whenever Bruno Fernandes plays, he's always been my captain, and it has been fairly tragic of late. But I mean, yesterday showed it straight away. It's just that fear factor with the likes of De Bruyne, Salah. You know, whenever they play, if you're not on them, you can really suffer. So yeah, it's going to be Bruno, I think.
Keeping it safe. James?
Same for me. No doubt on this one. He scored 3 goals in his 2 games against Everton, 19 points when the sides met in the autumn period. So I don't think this is the one to look away. I don't think if you want to go Antonio, I don't think that's a bad call. But this one, unlike I think tonight, where sort of the City versus Salah, I don't feel like Saturday's one particularly to go against. Because, I mean, of his 99% ownership, 97% or so will captain him as well. So I think, yeah, I'll go with that Saturday.
On the Sunday, shall we all just club in together and go Son against West Brom, make life easy?
No. No, genuinely, I'll probably captain Thiago Silva against Sheffield United unless something really changes my mind from Spurs tomorrow night. I obviously, look, Son at home to West Brom, it could go off. If he hasn't got his mate Harry, it doesn't appeal to me as much as Thiago Silva against the bluntest attack in the league, Blades. So I'm going to go Thiago, unless, like I said, something tomorrow night really changes my mind on Son. And that can happen if Spurs look better. I agree West Brom are awful, but I'd look at Thiago and go, I'd really fancy that for 20 points. And like what Luke said, do I fancy Son to then get 2? Because he's also a player that's not often hitting shot tiers. If he scores once, it's probably 7 times 2. So you really need the 2 attacking returns off him to beat Thiago. So I think I would just, at the moment, I'll go Thiago against Sheffield United again, unless something in the game tomorrow night really changes my mind. Any thoughts, Luke, with going with one of the City or Liverpool guys playing each other?
I mean, it's just so hard to call, isn't it? There's no doubt that one of them could end up being the highest scorer that week, but I couldn't tell you who that is right now. I mean, if Cancelo is going to start that game, which I assume he is, because I still believe he's their best wing fullback, I still think he's an option. I think there's even a chance he could get passing. I don't know, maybe outside, maybe not passing, at least tackles, I would say. So yeah, I'd consider it. But for me, if I had Thiago Silva, I'm with you. I mean, even if Son and Thiago Silva fail, Thiago Silva at least gets 5 points. I would have said concedes 1 goal and still gets tier 2 passing. Son would need bonus to get that right. So yeah, I hate the fact I didn't go Thiago Silva. So for me, it will be Son on that day probably. But I wouldn't be opposed to picking a City defender. I feel like they could still grind out a 1-0 there. And Diaz might get, I mean, Stones probably more so than Diaz if he plays, is more likely to get passing, actually.
I think what I'd say about the City guys on Sunday is whether they hit the passing tiers is probably dependent on what's happening on the game. So to be honest, if they're losing, they'll almost definitely hit it. If they're actually winning 1-0, we've seen in some other away games, such as Southampton, Chelsea, where they actually retreat a little bit and actually cede possession, which is unusual for them, but they've done it in a few away games. So whether they hit the passing tier might be dependent on what's happening in the game and what the score is, which makes me think you're unlikely to hit both. It's actually possibly clean sheet or passing tier, maybe not both. So, I mean, I would back Thiago Silva over the City guys. If you have no Chelsea or Tottenham coverage, I think I would probably go Cancelo over Salah, I think. Same. I'd be stunned if Cancelo didn't play on Sunday.
Yeah. I mean, you think they'd go full strength against each other. I mean, City just have the advantage that they've got the cushion of points at the moment. So it's more, the emphasis is definitely more on Liverpool to try and get something out of that game than it will be on City. And the Monday night, I think it's a case of just who do you own that can give you coverage on Monday. I've got Stuart Dallas. That will do nicely for me. James, you still holding Patrick Bamford?
Yeah.
Nice. So simple choice for you, Patrick Bamford.
And look,
I'm on Meslier, unfortunately.
So he saved tiers every game, hasn't he?
Yeah, that's one good thing.
To be honest, Palace, if Zaha obviously picked up an injury last night, which looked like a muscle injury, either in his hamstring or his bum, it wasn't clear, possibly both. But if it is a muscle injury, then he's unlikely to play Monday, I would say. And in which case, actually, Leeds against a Palace side without Zaha could easily be a clean sheet. What would you say, Luke, to people who had, say, Dallas and Bamford?
I think I'd go Bamford still. Leeds aren't particularly good offensively away from at home, I should say, and Bamford's not been great at home of late, I don't think. But I still would just tempt it because, I mean, we think he's on penalties still, right? I know he's kind of sharing them with Click, but he's
on them one. As far as I know, Bamford. Yeah, I think there was agreement was he'd take them until he missed one.
I'm not sure where Dallas would play. If he plays in centre midfield in this game, do you think?
Yeah, I'd say so. I don't see that changing at the moment.
Yeah, so as a result, and you can't really, I know against Palace is often quite good for passing tiers, but when playing in centre midfield, he doesn't seem to get them. So, yeah, I would edge towards Bamford just because he's capable of hitting shots on target in games and getting a penalty and whatnot. So, yeah, I tend to favour the attacker in it for the lesser sides and the defenders for the better sides generally. I don't know why, but that's just the way I go.
I understand that. If you were sitting there and you had no Chelsea, no Tottenham, no Leeds at the moment, would you be tempted to do something?
I don't think I would. Who would you even have though? I mean, I guess a Salah and then just ignore the Leeds Palace game. I mean, I've got Meslier. What's the best that can happen in that game? Really, he could get a clean sheet, 9 points, 18 points, but that's best case scenario. Is more likely he probably concedes a goal. So no, I don't think I would do it. I just don't think it's worth it.
You make a case for, say, if you've got Zaha and you're in a 4-4-2, perhaps going to Bamford, for example.
It would certainly tempt me on the day when I look at the lineup, but I just think realistically he's going to have to haul in that game really for it to be worth it. And pinning all your hopes on one game when he's been good and Leeds have been quite good, but I don't really like trusting the lesser sides when you really need them. It often backfires for me. If you're completely flush with transfers, then maybe, but I'd probably still avoid it because then that is the final game before Overhaul as well, isn't it?
Yep.
So it seems like you're literally throwing a transfer on a complete gamble that he's going to get 20 points.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to do it, you've got to do it tonight. And unfortunately, I think that's the same choice for Tottenham, Chelsea. But there are obviously players out there who've got plus 20 and may not have the coverage. I think if you're plus 20, I'd be a little bit tempted. I would definitely say Thiago Silva from the Tottenham Chelsea game, if you can go that way. And I think I would say Bamford from Leeds, but I think otherwise, generally speaking, it's not worth it.
I just feel like come the end of the season, there's going to be opportunities like this that are hard to foresee now, where you're gonna have maybe a Harry Kane that you could bring in for 2 games, and they've got better fixtures, for example, and you're just like, well, I'd much rather chance my luck on that.
It's the FOMO, isn't it? The psychological fear that, say, you've only got maybe just Liverpool and City on Sunday, and you've got Maddison against Wolves. It's not brilliant. That if you haven't got sort of Chelsea, Tottenham or Leeds, the fear is you could slip massively going into the overhaul period, and psychologically then you're on tilt a little bit.
Yeah, no, I get that, and obviously you'd like to have these people covered. I just genuinely believe that there will be better opportunities later down the line, especially the way injuries and COVID and stuff. It's not over, is it? And it will continue to happen. Lots of players getting injured all the time. And I have no doubt come the end of the season, you've also got, obviously, when the leagues are wrapped up, what happens if, I don't think it's going to happen, but let's say Man City are suddenly 15 points clear in the Champions League and we're sat there with 5 Man City players from Overhaul. Suddenly I've only got 15 swaps. That's 5 swaps I might have to make in the last 10 weeks. So I just feel like there will be opportunities later on, and it's hard to see them right now, but I can guarantee you there will be some later on.
The Sharks know how many transfers you got left now, by the way.
Oh yeah, whoops, slipped up.
Everyone hits rewind 10 seconds just to catch that.
I think that's a good segue, though, the fact you mentioned City. Have you given much thought to an Overhaul team yet, Luke?
Yeah, I have, because as I've just said, to catch up with all these really good guys who've probably got a lot more swaps than me. I mean, I don't know if you guys know, but the guy in 4th currently, Shipley's actually won Sky before. So he is definitely one to look out for. He's a great player. So yeah, the avenues you want to go, I think there's lots of different ways you can look at this. And for me, I probably have to, again, be a little bit different if I'm going to catch these guys. Now, the sensible way to play is obviously to cover lots of captains, because they're often very lucrative, right? And spread out your team a little bit, and obviously plan who am I going to bring in for 2 or 3s, sort of 2 for 1s, 3 for 1, stuff like that. But for people who've got less transfers like me, I may just have to avoid a lot of captain days and literally just fill my team with City and just sit back and hope that City carry on playing like they're playing. They keep returning, and some of these captain days fail. Now, I wouldn't advise anyone to do that, but I think if you're on few transfers, it's a possible tactic to be different to everyone else. So I've looked at a few teams and put it this way: most of them have contained at least 3 Man City defenders. Some of them with 4, with Edison as well. So, yeah, that's probably the route I'll end up going. Especially as, I mean, initially as well, it's quite lucrative because there's going to be lots of double game weeks for City, we think, right?
Yeah, I feel like this is where Serge wants me to speak.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, if I've got 19 transfers left, it's probably more than a few. But I was stung last year with the overhaul because it was literally straight after the overhaul where we had the split game week. I loaded up for the first half of the game week, and then everything just started getting postponed and cancelled, and COVID killed it, and that was that. So I'm really curious as to whether or not I aggressively post overhaul attack the first 3 or 4 fixtures, and then use my transfers, or try and set myself up longer term and save my transfers for the last kind of 5, 6, 7 weeks and really jump around then.
The way I am seeing it at the moment, and I've not even looked at a draft overhaul team or anything, is I think a lot of us psychologically think, oh, there'd be big gains at the end in terms of we normally have, let's say, FPL double game weeks in 32, 34, or 37. There are going to be a few teams that do, but because of European competition, it's unlikely to be the big clubs, by the way. So I feel like the one advantage left is probably likely to be with City at the start. I think they'll play Everton on the 17th. It's most likely to be Everton. That's Wednesday the 17th. That's the first midweek after the overhaul period. I then think they'll play, and I think it's most likely Wolves on Tuesday the 2nd of March, which would be in the middle of match week 26. There'll be a lot of teams play twice during that week. And then I think they're likely to play Southampton the following Wednesday on the 10th. That's a little bit dependent on them beating Swansea in the Cup. What you're suddenly looking at there is Man City play 7 times, while a lot of other teams will play 4. And that makes me want to, my instinct on that is to make sure I've got most people beat on City. So I agree with Luke. I can see me going Cancelo, Diaz and Stones again, unless I get spooked on Stones. Edison, I think, is particularly good for this period potentially because there will be some rotation. If City have got those 7 games and the Champions League is coming back, that's a certainty, whereas he won't be. Gundogan, De Bruyne back in mind, like if he's back for 24, or even if he's back for maybe even match week 25, to almost start with him and say, okay, ready for this period for him. Although, I mean, do you feel like he's worth it, KDB, Luke?
I mean, going on so far, no, is the answer, isn't it?
He's not really hitting like the tiering that he normally does and stuff.
I mean, when he comes back, I'm assuming he takes penalties back. And given how good of a player is and the fact that he's up front, out of position, potentially in some games, which has been working for them. I mean, Aguero, I don't know what's going on there. It feels like he's never going to play again. You just feel like he still has that massive potential to just be ridiculously good. But, you know, seeing is believing, and it just hasn't really been happening outside of about 3 or 4 game weeks. It's just not really happened. My concern would be, I probably am not going to go with him, and that could be a big risk. But you can do so much more with your team if you just miss out on one of the big hitters. And I can't see me missing out on Kane, Salah, Bruno Fernandes. So really, it's him, because I've got, similar to how we've had in the past, where Liverpool have had Van Dijk to your Salahs and stuff like that, who have just matched him season long. I mean, if you've captained Kevin, I've captained Kevin De Bruyne virtually every time he's played, and I'm down overall on it. If I'd have just gone for a Man City defender, I'm certain of that. So it's always that concern that he could easily just come back and be ridiculously good. But what, 1 goal from open play? I mean, it's just hard to make a case for him, really, I think, especially like you say, when he hasn't got the tiers, hasn't got those bits and pieces. And then my other thing actually is, does he hurt Gundogan when he comes back? Because Gundogan was doing well when De Bruyne was actually playing as well, wasn't he, towards the end? And maybe he keeps penalties because De Bruyne just decides to hand them out occasionally like he did to Sterling. I mean, there's always that chance, right? So, yeah.
You make an interesting point there with, if you look at Manchester United, Liverpool, to a slightly lesser degree, Liverpool and Spurs, outside of Bruno, Salah and Kane, you don't really, there's no second tier player that you think could potentially match Salah. I mean, Robertson maybe with Salah, but no one at Spurs is going to match Kane. No one at United is going to match Bruno. Whereas at City, there are other players that can match Kevin De Bruyne, which is why sometimes you do feel like he's the one that you could potentially make the sacrifice for. Whereas with the other teams, it doesn't make sense to. The only thing is, I mean, obviously City have come into form. They started getting into form when he was still playing, but really have kicked on when he's been injured. If he comes back into this City side in this form, is when he could potentially go mental, and that still would leave a little bit of fear in me.
No, I agree with that. From the point of when he returns to the end of the season, he could I mean, no one would be surprised if he was the top scoring fantasy player in Sky, would they? I think it's possible. But you have to make a sacrifice somewhere, I think, if you want to load up on City, because it's just not possible to have all those City defenders I've mentioned and all those big names in De Bruyne, or no way that I can find. So yeah, I think you will probably sit out for me, but don't worry, I'll be extremely nervous. The other part of it is that it takes a decision out of my mind. You know, every week I don't think, am I going to go De Bruyne? Am I going to go Diaz? Am I going to go whoever? I haven't got De Bruyne, so it's out of my mind now. I'll forget it and I'll go with the defender.
Just Cancelo or Diaz instead.
Yeah, exactly. Have that cluster instead. To be honest, like you say, that it might end up being Edison. If you've got Edison and you don't get to see the lineups, Edison for a nice little 9-pointer every time might just be the play. It's just, especially with double game weeks and stuff.
Yeah, although, it'll sting as a 2-pointer though, where you know the other guys will probably get you to 5, don't you? It's the only thing with that. I wouldn't be surprised, Serge, if my team that I have now is bar the goalkeeper exactly the same.
Wow.
I've got Leno in goal, so I mean I think that would be Edison. But otherwise, I look at Cancelo, Diaz, Stones, Thiago. Okay, Grealish, Antonio, Fernandes, Bamford, Salah. Son would be Kane, I guess, assuming he's back fit. Otherwise, that would be the other place to sacrifice. Leave like a Gundogan as a holder for Kane, for example, something like that, or even Raheem Sterling. I can see it not being too far away from that. I don't think, actually. He's come from that sense almost at a bad time, because I don't think I'll be doing a lot with it. The flip of going, obviously, the large on the City is once you come towards the FA Cup quarter-final weekend, and obviously City being in the League Cup final, then you've got the opposite, where they've got like 3 games while there's other teams who've got 5 or 6. So you are kind of booking in the future transfers to then move some of them on as well. But I feel like from the early game, that's the way my thinking is at the moment. And looking at the fixtures that have been announced so far in terms of TV days, there's some where I don't really care either way. Southampton v Everton, Wolves v Leeds, Brighton, Palace. In fact, all of them, I'm not overly bothered if I have coverage for it or not. I'll probably have Leeds, for example. The other 2 I'm less bothered about. I actually think that Southampton-Everton game that's the Monday might end up going back to the weekend, depending on the midweek fixtures that are arranged that midweek. Brighton Palace, I don't care about. So then you're looking at the coverage you need. Bar City is definitely probably Liverpool, Salah, and definitely Bruno. And Tottenham, you could leave Tottenham at first, I think. That's what I'm saying. Maybe go City and leave the money spare for Harry when you want to go back to it.
Yeah, I don't think I will be coming out of Overhaul with the same team, because as it stands, I've only got one Man City player in my team right now. So that's definitely not going to stay that way.
I think the majority of people will spread their team. Yeah. Because I don't think we'll know about the City-Everton game till next Thursday or Friday. And if City lose to Swansea, there's a good chance it won't happen at all. And in terms of the future games, like the Wolves, Southampton and stuff, and the other teams that can have a double, a lot of people are going to be unaware. And all the experienced players are going to know that midweek's free. Most of the FA Cup quarterfinals are going to move to there. But a lot of people still can't see the picture. And once you put fixtures there like Brighton Palace, you think, we spoke about this last week, you have that kind of, well, I can leave someone there from the start, like a Zaha. It's like the comparison I made last week. Do I want Zaha, if he's fit, for 2 Palace games and a captaincy, or do I just want Gundogan sitting there for 3 Man City games? Or John Stones at a similar price, for example? I think I'd just go to City guy.
Interesting. Should we answer a few questions that we've had on Twitter, guys?
Yes.
Yeah, let's do it.
We're going to let Luke answer all of these.
Well, some of them are aimed at both of you. Benny Blanco says, out of the 2 of you, who's best placed to finish ahead of the other? And I think Benny already knows that I'm going to finish ahead of both of you. So it's like backwards. Who's second and who's third? James, you're pointing at nobody on my screen. So.
Well, to be honest, me and Luke are basically neck and neck. It's nothing between us. It sounds like we've got the same transfers left, basically. It sounds like we've got a similar philosophy idea to what we'll probably do after Overhaul. So I suppose it probably won't be too much in it. And it will come down to Luke's captains, because he's got more cojones than me most weeks. So that will probably what'll influence it. Luke's got more experience on the finish, right? So whereas for me and usage is just second season, it almost feels like first season in many ways. So Luke's got the experience to finish better, but we'll probably be quite close.
Yeah, I mean, even just listening to your thought process, Luke, on how you're picking your captains and what have you, I feel like I'm learning in the middle of this pod. I'm not the best Sky player, let's say. So
Nah.
I think I'm going to put if I was a gambling man, I'd put money on Luke to finish above you, James.
Oh,
But
no, I'm not sure about
So would I, by the way.
that. I think I'm a bit too wild. No, I remember my, second or third seasons? Those were my heydays, man, where the enthusiasm's high, the work's put in. No, I'm going to go with you, James. And Suj, yeah, I think it's just putting the work in. I wouldn't say you're a bad Sky player at all. At the end of the day, the more work you put in, the more you get out, like we discussed at the beginning. So I think as you
He doesn't put the work in, though, mate.
Well, that's it. We just need to sort that part out.
I think I'm trying to figure out easier ways to make 25 and 50 grand than a spreadsheet and planning transfers.
There's probably better ways, yeah.
Well, I agree, but also my style is quite passive, and it's my style in FPL as well. If I don't need to make a move, I sometimes don't bother trying to make a move. And it's interesting because Niall Murphy asked a question: major learnings and regrets so far as we enter the second overhaul. And as I look at my squad and I'm sitting on just one Man City player and Ruben Diaz, and I see that most people have 3 or 4, I promised myself in FPL and this that I'd try and be more aggressive this season, and I haven't, and I can't. It's just because it's not my natural DNA to be more aggressive, and that's probably my major learning is that I'm not good at being aggressive. So I need to find another way to jump on bandwagons and things that are working well, rather than kind of being passive. You know what? Great that I'm coming out of Overhaul with more transfers than both of you, but it's only 4 or 5 more transfers, and that's not going to help me make up 150 points.
I think on that note there, where you're saying about aggressive, it's a mindset that's hard to get into people, and for some people who play different fantasy games like Sun and Telegraph and stuff, the limit of the amount of players you can have for a team is a sticking point that sometimes people can't get around. And we saw it last season with Liverpool, and we saw it this season with City when they've got a nice run of games, a very good run, and they're in good form, and obviously all their players are returning points. I feel like you just have to load up on these people, and it's been shown many times that these are your biggest opportunities throughout the season to do really well. Now, it could backfire. Liverpool also had a great run, let's not forget, and they had Newcastle and West Brom and whoever else they had, and they were absolutely shocking. Someone could have gone the Liverpool route. So, there's always yings and yangs to these things. But I think that the key factor here is when a team as good as Man City is in that good form and got a good run, you need to load up on their assets, because the best players will do that in these games that don't limit you to 3 players. And I think Sky should really, because there's potential for a season to go really, really wrong for them if a team just clearly is so much better and their assets are poorly priced. I mean, the likes of Stones and stuff he's back from the dead, for example. So he's obviously far less than he should be, especially in a static price game. So yeah, I feel like there should be a limit on the amount of players you can have, because you can absolutely smash it. And if you look at a team, look at the leaderboard, especially before Overhaul, so after the first 4 weeks, all the teams in the top 100 will have put all eggs in one basket. They all go that route, and it's very lucrative potentially.
Just on that, Luke, I take it the game was running when Leicester won the league.
Yes, yeah.
I presume there was some extremely cheap Leicester and Tottenham assets that season.
100%. Wes Morgan was like 4.5 million. He was ridiculous. Mahrez was ridiculous. Vardy, Agallo, like it was mad. Like exactly that. Nearly all the teams near the top had like virtually the entire Leicester team. And it's a mindset that's hard. If you play FPL and you obviously are nervous about putting 2 or 3, even from the top teams, you see people are talking now, even like, I should have 3 City by now. Yeah, you should have had 3 City a bloody long time ago. And when it comes to Sky, you probably should have had 4 or 5 quite a long time.
Yeah, my learning on it was that I spoke about it last week. I felt like I was ahead of the curve with going Diaz and Stones the day that the Everton game was postponed, and then conceding against Chelsea was shit, because everybody then went on the next week. But I should have then gone again and gone. I should have gone Rodri, gone Gundogan. I should have just gone the lot. In a way, I feel like I didn't go all in enough on it. Obviously, I had De Bruyne at the time, so I had 4, but I wasn't beating anybody. Basically, it felt like I was just doing the same as everybody else. I wish I'd have hit it harder.
Yeah, definitely. And Niall Murphy, by the way, is one of the best Sky managers around. I don't know if you know that, but he's probably, out of everyone, he's probably got the best overall, if there was a leaderboard, out of anyone, I think. So he knows what he's doing.
Nice. SkyFF Tay asks a question: should a defender continue to lose points after being sent off when their team concedes?
I know Bednarek broke the FPL record last night. I don't know if he broke the Sky record. Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, that doesn't annoy me as much as the penalty one. The saving the penalty when it goes wide. I can't be having that. I can't be. If you save it, great. But like, if the player blazes it over the bar and you're getting a penalty save points, it's not a penalty save. You go and save penalty. We didn't save it, did he? He's missed. So that's the one that annoys me a little bit. I mean, it doesn't really matter. I've had that go for me. Like I had Jordan Henderson last year when Grealish hit the bar, but I don't like that particularly. The minus points, well, yeah, you've cost your team if you get sent off. So I don't have an issue with that.
Yeah, I agree. It happens too few amount of a times for it to be relevant anyway. It's all about the penalty save one, and the other one I don't like is just the man of the match. I just bin it entirely because it's just too open to abuse. But
I think it's been better this year though. Maybe I've noticed that just because I've only played the 2 seasons, but I feel like there's been more consistency this year than last year. Like there was a game week. I think it was the night Arsenal beat Brighton maybe, and there were 4 games, and I think across the 4 man of the matches between them, their ownership was about 0.5%. Whereas last year it feels like they would have just gone, I see quite a few people bought Holding today or something like that, or give it to him, you know. Whereas I feel like that's not been happening as much this year.
Yeah, well, it's on the journalists at the end of the day. Sky don't have anything to do with it. It's quite often these guys are independent almost and work for them. So a lot of the time, I think they just go with. To be honest, I don't even know if they watched the match by some of the people they pick. I honestly don't know. I mean, Luke Shaw got picked for Man United last night. Yeah, he was great, but he only played 45 minutes. Can you give him man of the match in that? I'm not sure you can.
That seems pretty crazy when you've got people with multiple attacking returns.
So to me, you mean Mike Dean didn't get it?
Yeah. So to me, that screams of almost. I heard people are bigging up Luke Shaw on Twitter. He's trended even. Let's give him the man of the match. He got 2 assists. Fantastic. Yeah, but you should play 45 minutes, mate. Did you watch the game? Antonio was one recently as well. West Ham won. Antonio scored the only goal of the game. The headlines were all about Antonio, and then they gave it to Bowen, who was, by all accounts, one of the worst players on the pitch. So they still happen, but yeah, I agree. It's a lot less frequent.
Glenn Roy has a question, and Reece SkyFF also has a similar question. A Maverick pick from each of you post Overhaul. Reece says, who do we feel are the best budget options for Overhaul? So if you were to pick one budget player post Overhaul that you think might be worth looking at, anyone that you're thinking, James?
No. A right out there shout, Adarabioyo. So like 5.2 Fulham. There you go. There's no chance I'm buying him. Go on, Luke.
Right.
I don't know how maverick this is, to be honest, because he was absolutely class before he got injured. Mine's Vestergaard, I think.
Yeah, shout.
6.4 million. Same as a number of players like Dallas and stuff that you could move to. And he was getting passing bonus, and Southampton were fantastic at the back. So I don't know when he's due back is the only thing. But if it's around the time Overhaul kicks in, there's a good chance that he'll be my budget guy that I just leave in for the season.
Just having a little glance at their fixtures right up until match week 32. Now, they obviously won't play in match week 33 because it was scheduled to play City. So they've got Wolves, Chelsea, then the Everton game is the Monday currently. Sheffield United, Brighton, Tottenham, Burnley, West Brom, Palace, and they're likely to have a City game thrown in there as well. Not that that's good for a Vestergaard particularly. But yeah, that's a really good shout. And actually, it's a sustained decent run for Southampton, which feels a bit ironic to be saying Southampton defender when they've just conceded those goals again last night. I won't say the number of goals. But yeah, I think I could see that. That's a sustained one. That's the sort of one you want. You go, I'm going to leave that. That will 100%. Do. It will cover me the odd captaincy. I think I'd prefer, if he's close, and I think he is actually, then I think I would prefer to go him than, say, Rob Holding, personally.
Yeah, that's another one is the exact same price. But I feel Vestergaard's obviously got a massive goal threat as well. It's ridiculous, his goal threat, isn't it? So in some of those games, he might pick up a goal, even in away to Liverpool, for example. We've got no centre-backs. You just never know, do you? So, yeah, I think he's a really good option. And he's obviously out of people's minds at the moment. He's owned by 0% of the top 1K for obvious reasons because he's injured. 1.6 of the whole game. So, yeah, if he's back, then he'll just be in for me for the rest of the season, I think.
Ironically, it's the sort of one, actually, that if he's not fit when the Overhaul period ends, might even still be even more interesting because people would look somewhere else. And that, as I said, that Everton single game wager sort of 2 days later. Although Everton, it's worth saying, have got one of the best records from set pieces this season, I think. With a very unique way of going very deep on non-corner situations. So you potentially wouldn't score in the game, but I mean, give you a coverage that otherwise you possibly wouldn't wouldn't have. Any love, Luke, for people like Richarlison, who's obviously been the Sky mainstay and stuff in years gone by?
No.
No, agreed.
Yeah, no, he's a striker now, isn't he? If I
Yeah.
remember rightly. So that, to me, that just kind of takes him out. Before there was a dearth of midfielders, and obviously around an 8 million midfielder who picks up bonus and everything, he was an option. Now as a striker, not so much. I mean, he's more than capable of doing really well. But when you got Calvert-Lewin at 9.3, you often get shot. Well, he did often get shots on target bonus. I just think he's not an option, unfortunately.
I may come out of the overhaul still with Saka as a budget option at 7 million.
Good shout.
Obviously, he's had he missed the game and then blanked, but before that, he was picking up man of the match. I feel like he's one of those characters, because of his lively nature and the way he's involved in the game, could pick up quite a lot of man of the match, especially when he's playing in an attacking position. At 7 million, I don't know what the impact's going to be on Arsenal's fixtures, whether they're going to end up with quite a few single game days, or they just had a couple of single game days, haven't they? So I might come out with Saka as a bit of a left field pick, potentially. Let's leave the last question of the show, guys. This is one that we get every week, James. I don't know if we should just make it a running part of the agenda. How many transfers should I still left, and how many should I have after overhaul, and what's a good number of transfers to left?
It don't bloody matter now, does it? You're there, basically.
I'm going to give Ian Parrin the last question. He says the person sat at 250th in Sky at the moment is 150 points behind the current leader. I don't know if that means Ian himself is at 250th, and that's why he's asking. But whoever is at 250 is 150 points behind. How many transfers in hand would you three require to feel confident in overhauling that deficit by the end of the season?
About 10, but judging by some of the names Luke says in the top 100.
40? If I had 40 transfers, I'd make up 150 points.
You'd still fuck it up, mate.
Well, we'll find out, because we're all going to get a third team, aren't we, next week?
To be honest, it's going to depend how you set up on the overhaul. So Luke's right in terms of saying that maybe something different. I think a lot of the experienced guys will probably still go quite heavy on Man City, for example. You can go to a different route. It's about hitting captaincies. I mean, look, if suddenly you go through those single game days, like I said, and you're sitting there with Bamford and he scores twice against Wolves, Zaha does the same against Brighton, and Calvert-Lewin does the same against Southampton. I mean, you're going to fly with major differentials. It's a case of what you do afterwards and different. So it's captaincies. Maybe try and something a little bit different from the overhaul. I feel like the closer we get, the more there's a lean into powering into Man City potentially. Still, again.
Do you think only 10 transfers, James, would be enough to make up 150 points?
It can be done. I mean, look at what I just said. If those guys pop off, like I said, there's a 60 points that someone else won't have. So it can be done. It just needs to be timed correctly.
If you had the whole season play already, let's say we went back in time and you asked the computer to play it from now with only 10 transfers, would they win? Probably. It is quality over quantity for me.
Yeah.
They would. But yeah, the chances of hitting it are incredibly slim. So to be honest, you would want, because you want obviously your maximum chances to actually do it, you'd want 20 to 25 to definitely give yourself the best shot. But yeah, like I said, transfers don't always mean points. I've used many. I mean, despite having all the experience that I have or whatever, you know, if I look back through my transfers through the season, I guarantee you there's about 5 or 6 that were a complete waste of time.
You spoke interesting. I wanted to raise it with you, Luke, on your stream with Joe last week. You spoke about a season where everybody had loads left towards the end and actually didn't know what to do with them.
Yeah.
How did that kind of pan out?
Well, there was a lot of people, for example, especially in the WhatsApp group that I was in, that had like 20 to 25 swaps left come the last 2 months. And basically the same players just kept returning, as were returning all season. It was just one of those times where the same names at the start were the same names at the end. And in the end, they ended up using them and costing themselves points, because obviously they're trying to be too clever and they're going away from X, Y, Z. And it can happen. So, yeah, I just keep saying it's definitely quality over quantity. Don't get me wrong. I think having at least 15 or more is ideal, but you've still got to get them right, 100%. And like you've said, James, there's sometimes you'll get the Benteke hat trick on a match day on a Monday, and you'll fly 50 to 60 points and catch everyone up. But you know, that doesn't happen more often than not. And more likely you'll have used 2 swaps to get him in and out, and probably not gain much. So even if he scores 1 goal, it's probably not worth it.
We'll have all used that transfer on Gator anyway.
Yeah, Jesus. Go back to that question about regrets. Jesus Christ. On Overhaul, going Gator was probably the worst decision I've ever made. I mean, I didn't have Bruno Fernandes, and he really hurt me after Overhaul. So that was definitely one of my regrets. And I forgot about Gator. So thanks he brought that up. He trumps it. Never going near that guy again.
You're very welcome, mate.
Fantastic. That's it for this episode of SkyFF. I do feel like I've learned so much just listening to you talk. I've got my report card now, must work harder. So based on the fact that with 10 transfers, you still feel like someone could close a 150-point gap. With 19 transfers, I'm going to close a 220-point gap. So I need to go and build my spreadsheets, boys. So we need to end this episode so I can go and make that happen.
Luke, before you go, tell us where people can find you, and tell us just a little bit about your streams with Joe.
It's on Twitter at ffscout_Luke. I think I changed
Or handle, boy.
Yeah, that's the handle. That's the one. I'm down with the kids. The streams are obviously on Fantasy Football Scouts YouTube channel. If you just type it into YouTube, it should pop out. We do one every week. A little bit more mainstream than you guys. Obviously, with Fantasy Football Scout, it's a lot more directed towards the mainstream.
Look at him.
What I mean by that is it's more for the casual player, I would say, rather than the hardcore. There's little bits and pieces there, but yeah.
I'll have to stop watching it then, mate. When's that normally out? Thursday or Friday, or do you switch it up?
Yeah, it depends when we record. Usually Thursday or Friday, but you don't want to listen.
I thought what Luke was alluding to is basically they don't swear and we do.
Yeah, that was part of it as well. Yeah.
Fantastic. Look, we really appreciate you taking the time out this morning to join us. You did say as well that it's your daughter's birthday, so a massive shout out to her. You can show her on YouTube that she is getting a happy birthday from all of us. James, we'll be back next week with another episode of SkyFF, and we will be overhauling. So all you players that are really into it and trying to tinker with your teams once the Leeds Crystal Palace game is out of the way, make sure you do stay tuned for that. So hit subscribe, the notification bell, and all of that other stuff.
We'll go again Wednesday. We'll begin to get the picture because obviously United, West Ham, and Burnley all play in the FA Cup on the Tuesday. So we'll begin to get the picture a little bit in terms of how it's beginning to look. But I don't think any of us are really going to be able to lock in that kind of overhaul period until probably after Chelsea played Barnsley next Thursday to kind of exactly get a real idea of what the picture looked like. We'll do a Sky podcast for patrons after that as well, probably next Friday, the day before the overhaul.
Yeah, for anyone that is interested in Patreon, we do an additional podcast every day, and quite often that is Sky Fantasy Football Extra Time, which will be next Friday, summarising the overhaul. Touch wood. So you can find details on that, patreon.com/planetfpl, and that's all you need to know. Most importantly, wherever you are, stay safe. We know there's new variants of COVID running around the country, so do stay safe wherever you are. Thanks for listening. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Be nice to each other. Cheers, Luke. Cue music, please, man, child.